Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the West Ham Network. Anton here, bringing you a little cheeky update from the West Ham world. Of course, the transfer window closed back in January, 18 days ago, you could say. The winter window is closed, but it doesn't stop the West Ham world from having rumour after rumour after rumour. And obviously, we weren't massively busy in the January transfer window. But we did also make some big changes. We brought Graham Potter in. We've changed. Tim Steidten's gone out the door. We've got Kyle McCauley in at the club, and part of the kind of new regime moving in to try and develop and bring West Ham more success over the years to come. And it looks like West Ham are about to try and raid Scotland. What do I mean by that? Well, of course, we know we signed Josh Landers from Hibernian, the under, I think 17 years old, under 18s from Hibernian. He goes straight into the development squad. So obviously West Ham, and we know we have been over the past few years looking at all other countries, especially in the UK in particular, at all of their development squads and their under-18s teams and etc. like that, and bringing in the best talent we possibly can do to challenge what the current crop of youth players that we've got in there. We're also led to believe that the deal to bring Daniel Cummings is close from Celtic. Again, he'll be another player that will go straight into that setup at West Ham, the youth setup at West Ham. And it looks like we are desperate to get that deal done over the line. It looks like we're leading the deal to bring him in. It looks like Martin Noble was pivotal into bringing him in. And it looks like we're looking towards the summer, and firepower is something we need to add, it looks like. Well, we know that, obviously, with our ageing forward line of, especially with the fact that we've got an injured Antonio late into his 30s, Danny Ings late into his 30s, Nicholas Füllkrug just entering or in early days of his 30s. And it looks like Kyle McCauley is working his magic already. It looks like we're going to go for a raid on some Scottish young players, but not just young players, well, they are young, but players that are maybe establishing themselves in the league as well. And it goes back, I suppose you could say, to the way that West Ham need to grow as a club in terms of what is our transfer strategy? Who are we looking at bringing in? Do we source the best talent from all over Europe and pay over the odds for that transfer fee, or do you try and go for a different model, a model that's already replicated at other clubs in the Premier League, where you look at the best talent from the lesser leagues in Europe and see what's available, pay lesser fees, taking more risks, but hoping you find that diamond in the rough? And one of those players that we are supposedly looking to bring in is the Moroccan player Hamza Igamane, who plays currently at Rangers. Now, I am not going to put too much... I'll explain my thinking behind what I'm about to say here. So, obviously, I'm a massive West Ham fan. West Ham is my only club, and West Ham tends to be the only team I do tend to watch, apart from things like the Champions League, etc., etc. I am by no means a Scottish football expert, even though I live in Scotland and I have done all my life. I am by no means a Scottish expert. I do try to keep an eye on specific games, or if West Ham are linked to a specific player, maybe try and keep an eye on that market, and I try and think like, well, would that player fit the system? But what I can tell you, and if you are a football fan in general, is you probably, if you're living, especially local to your local teams, etc., you'll understand if teams are struggling or if they're being successful. So in Scotland right now, Celtic are running away with the league. Rangers have been struggling under their new manager, who is Philippe Clement. And they have been looking for options. They've spent quite a bit of money in terms of the Scottish market, and they themselves, and very similar in the Scottish market, go and look at, you could say diamonds in the rough, and Igamane could be that diamond in the rough. They brought him in from Morocco, very unheard of, if I'm being honest with you, 22 years old, only plied his trade in Morocco. Really unheard of player, came through the full system for his team there and came to Rangers, and Rangers have been desperately trying to find a force to be reckoned with up top, since they've made many transitions with different managers, different systems and different players. And what they did is this season they've brought Igamane into the team, and he's become a really strong player for Rangers as of late, playing 22 games in the Premier League in Scotland, scored 9 goals with 1 assist. And let me put this to you right now. Rangers have been struggling as a whole from top, from ownership, very similar to the West Ham setup. Not similar in terms of how they let the club die the way that happened, but um, in terms of the communication, the fans, how they feel towards the owners, etc., etc. But then all the way down to the playing team. Not the Scottish League is built upon winning that league every year out, especially for the likes of Rangers and Celtic. They are challenged, and their KPI is, yes, you need to win that league, and if you don't win that league consecutively, then that goes against you. Of course, they want European football, they want the Champions League, and if the teams can progress and push far in those leagues, then that's very good, but they don't want to be embarrassed at the same time. Now, this player that I'm talking about, Igamane, has played 6 Europa League games for Rangers this season, scoring 4 goals and 1 assist. So in the 31 games covering all competitions for Rangers, he's played 31 times, scoring 13 goals and 3 assists. Now, what do you say? Is it because the Scottish League is lesser on paper than the English Premier League? Well, I don't necessarily believe that, because I think that I used to think like that years ago, but I think that was my naivety kicking in. But I think what you've got here is that you've got some of the talent that can rise to the top. The cream can rise to the top, and you can find diamonds within that attribute. Now, he is and could genuinely be a one season wonder, but what you do get from a player like this is, the world of the unknown, a lesser fee. I mean, he's not even been called up to the Moroccan international team, but it looks like he will get called up to the Moroccan international team because of his more recent form. He has represented Morocco under 23 level, playing 6 games and scoring 2 goals. He is contracted to Rangers until June 2029, so they still have 4 years left. But we do know that because Rangers are struggling, a mixture of financially and a mixture of in the league, they probably will look to sell on some assets to be able to invest into further assets. That's the model that they run on. So Rangers probably will try and demand a hefty fee, but that hefty fee will not rise upwards of crazy value. So money that definitely West Ham can afford to spend. And obviously, it looks like Macaulay is coming in to try and change the whole dynamics of the West Ham setup, saving a fortune in wages at the team would be pivotal to how West Ham progress moving forward. And I think that's exactly what Macaulay is going to do. He's going to massively reduce the average age and massively reduce the average weekly wage that we're paying out to players. And that changes the whole profile of the West Ham squad if you bring in a player like this. Like I said, we've got the likes of 32 years old Danny Ings, 35-year-old Mikel Antonio, 31-year-old Nicolas Fulgrig on the books. So we're going to look for these, I suppose you could say, diamonds in the rough. And I think Igamane could be that potential one of those options. You're not. It's not making a massive risk. There's no huge risk in it. Less of a fee there. Now, he's not the most athletic of players, but he is a player that knows how to find the back of the net. He is strong. He knows how to control the ball, and he's an absolute menace for the defenders from what we see. He is pretty tall. He's not one of the tallest strikers in the world, but he does he's a kind of all round robust striker. He can if you think about when Andy Carroll, do you remember when we had Andy Carroll and the ball would get kicked out from the keeper and Andy Carroll could just bring the ball out of the air out of nothing? This is this sort of player. He's very clever with his feet. He's very a clever footballer because he doesn't have the most athletic style. Like he will work the ranks to the flanks to a certain extent, but he can control the ball really well and hold off the pressure. It's like that kind of modern day striker. You drop in deep and you bring in your opposition players. You don't And I feel West Ham are going to start moving towards bridging that gap between our midfield and our striker. I bring this all up to you all the time, many times when I talk about it, but I feel like ever since we lost, say, for example, Jesse Lingard, that gap, even when we were successful, even in Europe, that gap when we had Jesse Lingard in the team between midfield and strikers was reduced. But when the minute that Jesse Lingard left the club, that gap opened back up again. And when you watch us now, you see big gaps between the forward, even like Evan Ferguson in the midfield. Nowhere near that gap has been closed, and we need to work at closing that gap. And I think when we close that gap, that's when we allow the forward to be more involved in the game, and they drop deep and they're doing more work, and that's exactly what seems to be the modern day striker of what they're trying to do. But is Igamane the player that we want and will be a fantastic future player for West Ham? No one will never know. No one will ever know, but this seems to be the model that we need to move towards. He's 22 years old. He's played European football. He's banging in some goals, and he needs to, these kind of players maybe need to get given a shot. Is it better than what we've got? Possibly, but you don't know. You have to take these risks sometimes. So it looks like West Ham could be raiding it. We've brought in Daniel Cummings. We've brought in Josh. Well, we will be bringing in Daniel Cummings. We've brought in Josh Landers, and it's just a case of now seeing whether we kind of raid these lower European ranked leagues to bring in the best talent we possibly can. Let me know your thoughts on it. Is this the saviour? Is this the option for us moving forward? Is this the way it's going to be going forward for West Ham? The one thing we do know is this probably is going to be the direction that West Ham are going in, is looking at the best talent from some of the other European leagues. Anyway, if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and leave a comment. Come on, you Irons.